The autumn wind carried golden leaves across Riverside Memorial Park, creating a rustling symphony that seemed to whisper secrets among the headstones. Eleanor Hartwell stood at the edge of the cemetery's iron gates, her silver Mercedes parked along the cobblestone path. At 58 years old, she had visited this place every Tuesday for the past 4 years, always alone, always at precisely 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Eleanor adjusted her cashmere coat against the October chill and began her familiar walk toward the northwest corner of the cemetery, where white marble monuments stood beneath ancient oak trees. Her heels clicked against the stone pathway with the same measured rhythm she brought to everything in her life, calculated, controlled, precise. As the founder and CEO of Hartwell Technologies, Eleanor had built an empire from a small software startup in her garage 30 years ago. Forbes had called her the woman who revolutionized cloud computing. Business magazines featured her on covers with headlines about breaking glass ceilings and redefining success. But none of those achievements could fill the void that had consumed her life since that terrible phone call 4 years ago. "Mrs. Hartwell, there's been an accident. Michael, her only son, gone at 31, leaving behind questions she could never answer and conversations they would never have." Eleanor turned the final corner toward Michael's grave, carrying her usual bouquet of sunflowers, his favorite. But she stopped abruptly when she saw that she wasn't alone. A young woman sat on the ground beside Michael's headstone, her back against the cool marble. She wore a navy blue diner uniform with a name tag that read Maya, and her dark curls were pulled back in a practical ponytail. In her lap sat a small boy, perhaps 4 years old, with warm, brown skin and bright, intelligent eyes. Both were quiet, the woman's hand gently stroking the child's hair as they sat in what appeared to be peaceful contemplation rather than acute grief. Eleanor felt a surge of indignation. This was her private space, her time with her son. She had never encountered anyone else here before. "Excuse me," Eleanor said, her voice carrying the authoritative tone that had silenced boardrooms full of executives. "This is a private family plot. I believe you may have the wrong location." The young woman looked up, and Eleanor was struck by her eyes, deep, thoughtful, and carrying a wisdom that seemed beyond her apparent 25 or 26 years. There was no hostility in her expression, only a gentle sadness. "I'm sorry to intrude, Mrs. Hartwell," the woman said softly, standing while keeping the boy close to her side. "I'm Maya Rodriguez. We've never met, but I knew your son." Eleanor's grip tightened on her bouquet. 4 years of investigations, private detectives combing through Michael's life, trying to understand the son who had grown distant in his final years, and she had never heard this name. "I don't understand," Eleanor said, though her business instincts were already calculating possibilities, assessing threats. "How did you know Michael?" Maya hesitated, glancing down at the boy, who was now looking at Eleanor with open curiosity. "Perhaps we should talk somewhere more comfortable? There's a coffee shop just outside the cemetery gates." "I'd prefer to talk here," Eleanor insisted. "Now, who are you? And why are you at my son's grave?" The boy tugged on Maya's hand. "Mama, is this the lady from the picture?" Eleanor's heart lurched. Mama. Picture. The implications were falling into place like dominoes, each one more impossible than the last. Maya took a deep breath. "Mrs. Hartwell, this is Caleb. He's 4 years old. And he's your grandson." The sunflowers fell from Eleanor's hands, scattering across the grass like small suns tumbling from the sky. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. A grandson. Michael had a son. "That's impossible," Eleanor whispered, though even as she said it, she was studying the boy's features. The shape of his eyes, those were her eyes, the Hartwell eyes that had been in her family for generations. The curve of his smile, the way he stood with one foot slightly forward, just like Michael used to do. "I have documentation," Maya said gently, pulling a folder from a canvas bag Eleanor hadn't noticed before. "Birth certificate, medical records, photos of Michael with Caleb. I know this is a shock." Eleanor's hands trembled as she took the folder. Inside were photographs that shattered her carefully constructed understanding of her son's life. Michael, grinning widely, holding a newborn baby in a hospital room. Michael teaching a toddler to walk across a park lawn. Michael and Maya together, looking at the camera with the comfortable intimacy of long partnership. Why? Eleanor's voice broke. Why didn't he tell me? Why didn't you contact me when he died? Maya's expression filled with compassion rather than the defensiveness Eleanor might have expected. Because Michael was afraid. Mrs. Hartwell. And after he died, I wasn't sure what the right thing to do was. Afraid of what? Eleanor demanded, though somewhere deep down, she already knew the answer. Maya gestured to the marble bench nearby. Please, sit down. This is a long story. And you deserve to hear all of it. Eleanor sat, her legs suddenly unreliable. Caleb climbed onto the bench beside her, looking at her with frank curiosity. You have the same eyes as my daddy, Caleb said matter-of-factly. Mama said Daddy's mama had special eyes too. Eleanor found herself looking into those young eyes, her son's eyes, this child's eyes, and felt something crack in the armor she'd built around her heart. Maya sat on Caleb's other side, creating a small, unlikely circle. I met Michael 5 years ago at a community center where I volunteered. He was there, setting up a computer literacy program for underserved neighborhoods. Something he did in his free time that he never mentioned to you. Eleanor felt the sting of that truth. She hadn't known about any volunteer work. She hadn't known about so much. We became friends first, Maya continued, her voice gentle but honest. Michael was different from anyone I'd ever met. Not because of his background or his family's wealth, but because he genuinely wanted to make a difference in people's lives. He'd sit for hours teaching seniors how to use email so they could connect with grandchildren. He'd help kids with their homework. He saw people, really saw them, in a way that's rare. That sounds like Michael, Eleanor admitted quietly. When he was young, he always wanted to help people. I thought he'd outgrown it. He didn't outgrow it, Mrs. Hartwell. He just grew into it more fully. Maya smiled softly at the memory. We fell in love over terrible coffee and conversations about how technology could bridge divides instead of creating them. When I got pregnant, Michael was overjoyed. Terrified, but overjoyed. So why didn't he tell me? The pain in Eleanor's voice was raw. Deliberated character motivations and relationship dynamics carefully. I need to handle this carefully. The reason should be meaningful and realistic, showing Eleanor's flaws without making her a villain, and showing how their relationship broke down in understandable ways. Maya looked directly at Eleanor. Because the last time he brought someone to meet you, his previous girlfriend, Sarah, you spent the entire dinner interrogating her about her family's financial status, her career prospects, and whether she understood the responsibilities of being associated with the Hartwell name. She left in tears. Michael was devastated. Eleanor closed her eyes, remembering. She had thought she was being protective, ensuring her son wasn't being used for his wealth. She had thought she was being a good mother. I was trying to protect him, she said weakly. I know, Maya replied without judgment. But Michael felt like he had to choose between the life he wanted and the life you wanted for him. When Caleb was born, he kept saying, someday, I'll find the right way to tell her. But someday never came. Eleanor looked at Caleb, who was now examining a small toy car he'd pulled from his pocket, completely absorbed in making it roll along the bench's armrest. 4 years of this child's life had passed without her knowledge. 4 years of birthdays, first words, first steps, all the moments grandparents dream of. The accident, Eleanor said suddenly. Were you there? Maya's expression darkened. No. Michael was on his way to pick us up from my mother's house. He never made it. She paused, her voice thick with emotion. Drunk driver ran a red light. Michael died instantly. They sat in silence for a moment. 3 generations bound by loss and love and missed opportunities. Why come forward now? Eleanor finally asked. Why after 4 years? Maya glanced at Caleb, who had abandoned his car and was now examining the flowers Eleanor had dropped. Because Caleb started asking questions about his father that I couldn't fully answer. He deserves to know his family history. And because, she hesitated, vulnerability showing through her composure for the first time. Eleanor felt another shockwave. Married. His name is David Chen. He's a good man, and he loves Caleb like his own son. But before we start this new chapter, I wanted Caleb to know where he comes from. I wanted him to have the chance to know you, if you want to know him. Eleanor watched Caleb gathering the scattered sunflowers, his small hands careful with the delicate petals. He brought them over and placed them solemnly on Michael's grave. Mama says we bring flowers for people we love who are in heaven, Caleb explained to Eleanor. Do you love my daddy too? The simple question from this child, her grandson, broke through every defense Eleanor had constructed. Tears she hadn't allowed herself to cry in 4 years suddenly flowed freely. Yes, she whispered. I loved him very much. I just didn't always show it the way I should have. Caleb considered this with the seriousness only small children can muster. That's okay. Mama says sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, but they can still be good people if they try to do better. Eleanor looked at Maya with new eyes. This wasn't a gold digger or an opportunist. This was a woman who had loved her son, raised his child with wisdom and grace, and was offering Eleanor something precious, a second chance. I don't know how to be a grandmother, Eleanor admitted, the confession feeling like stepping off a cliff. I wasn't very good at being a mother. Maya's expression softened. Michael used to say that his mom was brilliant at business, but scared of emotions. He said you loved him, but you didn't know how to show it without making it transactional. The truth of it hit Eleanor hard. How many times had she expressed love through gifts instead of presents? How many school plays had she missed while closing deals? How many bedtime stories had she skipped for conference calls? I failed him, Eleanor said simply. Maybe, Maya replied, with gentle honesty. But failure isn't permanent, unless you choose to make it so. Michael forgave you, Mrs. Hartwell. In the last letter he wrote to me, the one to be opened if anything happened to him, he said his biggest regret was not finding a way to bridge the gap between his mother and his family. He hoped someday you would meet Caleb and that maybe it would heal something in you. Eleanor looked at this young woman who had every reason to resent her, to keep her grandson away from the grandmother who had driven her son into secrecy. Instead, Maya was offering grace. I have so many questions, Eleanor said. I have time, Maya replied. We have time. That's what I'm offering you, time to build a relationship with Caleb at whatever pace feels right. No pressure, no expectations beyond treating him with kindness. Caleb had wandered a few feet away and was collecting interesting leaves. Eleanor watched him, seeing glimpses of Michael in every movement, the way he tilted his head when examining something closely. The unconscious grace of his movements. Tell me about him, Eleanor said. Tell me everything. What does he like? What makes him laugh? What are his dreams? Maya smiled. And for the next hour, as the autumn sun moved across the sky, she painted a picture of Caleb's life. His obsession with dinosaurs and space. His kindness toward other children. His tendency to ask why about everything. His love of music, especially when Maya sang to him. His habit of leaving little drawings around the house with notes that said, I love you, in wobbly letters. Eleanor listened, absorbing every detail like she was downloading precious data. She asked questions, real questions, not interrogations about Caleb's routine, his health, his education. He goes to Little Learners Preschool 3 days a week, Maya explained. The other 2 days, my mom watches him while I work at the diner. It's not fancy, but it's good. He's happy. Tell me about you, Eleanor said, surprising herself. Michael clearly loved you. I want to understand why. Maya looked startled by the question, then thoughtful. I'm not sure how to answer that. Start anywhere, Eleanor encouraged. So Maya talked about growing up in a working-class neighborhood, being raised by a single mother who worked 2 jobs to put food on the table. About getting a scholarship to community college, where she studied early childhood education. About meeting Michael at the community center, where she tutored kids in reading. We used to talk for hours, Maya reminisced. About everything and nothing. Michael said I made him feel like he could be himself. Not Michael Hartwell of Hartwell Technologies. Just Michael, a guy who cared about making a difference. What made him happiest? Eleanor asked. Caleb. Maya answered immediately. From the moment he was born, Michael was all in. He'd get up for night feedings, change diapers, read parenting books. He was terrified of messing up, but he loved being a dad. Eleanor felt the weight of all she'd missed. But alongside the grief, something else was growing, a fragile hope. Caleb returned with a handful of colorful leaves. Mama, can we show the pretty lady the album? Maya pulled out her phone and opened a photo album. Michael took pictures constantly. He said he wanted to remember every moment. Eleanor found herself looking at her son's life through a window she'd never known existed. Michael making funny faces at baby Caleb. Caleb's first birthday party in what looked like a modest but cheerful apartment. Michael and Maya on a beach somewhere, Caleb between them, all three laughing at something beyond the camera's frame. He looked happy, Eleanor whispered. He was, Maya confirmed. He also felt guilty about not telling you. He wrote you letters sometimes, trying to explain, trying to find the right words. I have them. If you want them, please, Eleanor said. I want to understand everything. As the sun began to set, painting the cemetery in shades of gold and amber, Eleanor realized this conversation could have gone so differently. Maya could have been defensive, demanding, bitter. Instead, she was offering understanding and patience. Why are you being so kind to me? Eleanor asked directly. After I drove Michael away? Maya looked at her for a long moment. Because anger and blame won't bring Michael back. Because Caleb deserves to know his grandmother if she's willing to be in his life. And because Michael told me once that his mother wasn't cold, she was scared. He said you grew up in poverty and built your entire empire from nothing, and that you protected yourself by never showing vulnerability. Eleanor was stunned. He understood that? He understood you better than you knew, Maya said gently. He just didn't know how to tell you that he saw your fear and loved you anyway. Tears ran down Eleanor's face again, but this time they felt cleansing rather than bitter. Caleb approached and did something that would change Eleanor's life. He climbed into her lap without hesitation, as naturally as if he'd done it 1,000 times before. Don't be sad, he said, patting her wet cheek with his small hand. Mama says, crying is okay. It means your heart is working. Eleanor wrapped her arms around this precious child, her grandson, and felt something inside her chest crack open, something that had been frozen for far too long. Would you like to see Caleb again? Maya asked gently. Maybe we could start slowly? A few visits, see how it goes? Eleanor looked up, hope and fear warring in her expression. I don't want to disrupt his life. I don't want to cause problems. You're his grandmother, Maya said simply. You're part of his story, if you want to be. But it has to be real, Mrs. Hartwell. Caleb doesn't need expensive gifts or grand gestures. He needs presence and consistency. I understand, Eleanor said. And for the first time in years, she meant it. I want to try. I want to do this right. Maya nodded. Then, let's start with coffee. Real coffee, not a business meeting. Just 3 people getting to know each other. Can we get hot chocolate? Caleb asked hopefully. Mama says, I'm still too little for coffee. Eleanor found herself laughing, actually laughing for the first time since before Michael died. Hot chocolate sounds perfect. As they walked together toward the cemetery gates, Caleb's hand in Eleanor's, Maya walking beside them, Eleanor realized that this was what Michael had wanted all along. Not a perfect family, but a real one. Not power and prestige, but connection and love. The Mercedes seemed suddenly absurd next to Maya's practical sedan with its car seat in the back. But Eleanor didn't care about the optics, didn't care what anyone might think. She was too busy learning that her grandson's favorite dinosaur was the Brachiosaurus and that he could count to 50 in both English and Spanish. At the coffee shop, Eleanor made a decision that would have shocked her board of directors. She texted her assistant to clear her schedule for the rest of the week. Some things, she was finally learning, were more important than quarterly earnings reports. As Caleb showed her how to make a napkin into a paper airplane, teaching her with the patient seriousness of a child sharing precious knowledge, Eleanor felt the first stirrings of something she thought she'd lost forever: joy. Maya watched them interact, her expression cautiously hopeful. She had taken a tremendous risk bringing Caleb here today, offering this bridge to a woman who could have rejected them, could have made everything complicated and painful. "Thank you," Eleanor said quietly to Maya, while Caleb was distracted with coloring on the children's menu. "Thank you for giving me this chance." "Thank Michael," Maya replied. "He's the one who believed you could change, who hoped you'd want to know your grandson. I'm just honoring his wishes." Eleanor looked at the photos on Maya's phone again, at her son's happy face in these captured moments of a life she'd never known about. "I have so much to learn," she admitted. "We all do," Maya said. "Being a parent, being a grandparent, it's all learning as we go." As the evening settled in, and Caleb began to yawn, Eleanor realized this was just the beginning. There would be challenges ahead, difficult conversations, adjustments, and compromises. But for the first time in 4 years, she felt like she had a purpose beyond work, beyond building her empire. She had a grandson to know and a chance to honor her son's memory by being the grandmother Michael had hoped she could become. 3 weeks had passed since that autumn afternoon in the cemetery, and Eleanor Hartwell's carefully ordered life had undergone a transformation that would have been unthinkable just a month before. Her executive calendar, once filled exclusively with board meetings and investor calls, now included entries like "pick up Caleb from preschool" and "story time at Maya's apartment." Eleanor sat in her home office, the morning sun streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city skyline. The space was a testament to her success: original artwork on the walls, awards and accolades displayed on custom shelves, photographs of her shaking hands with tech industry leaders and politicians. But her eyes kept drifting to the new addition on her desk, a crayon drawing Caleb had made for her last week. It showed 3 stick figures holding hands, labeled in wobbly letters: Maya, Caleb, and Grandma. Her assistant, Jennifer Kim, knocked on the open door. "Mrs. Hartwell, your 9 o'clock is here. The quarterly review team is waiting in conference room A." Eleanor glanced at her watch, then at another new calendar entry: Caleb's preschool Halloween parade, 10:30 a.m. For the first time in her 30-year career, Eleanor made a choice that would have been unthinkable before. "Jennifer, please send my apologies to the team. Have Marcus lead the review. I have a prior commitment." Jennifer's eyebrows rose slightly, but she was too professional to comment. "Of course, Mrs. Hartwell. Shall I reschedule for tomorrow?" "Yes." "And Jennifer?" Eleanor smiled, an expression that had become more common in recent weeks. "I'm going to a Halloween parade. My grandson is going to be a dinosaur." As Jennifer left, still processing this unprecedented shift in priorities, Eleanor gathered her things. She paused at the mirror in her office bathroom, seeing a woman who looked somehow younger than she had a month ago, despite the silver in her hair. The hard lines around her mouth had softened. There was light in her eyes again. Her phone buzzed with a text from Maya. "Running a bit late. Costume emergency. Caleb's tail fell off. See you there?" Eleanor smiled as she typed back, "On my way. Should I bring safety pins?" 20 minutes later, Eleanor pulled into the parking lot of Little Learner's preschool, a cheerful building decorated with paper pumpkins and construction paper ghosts. She felt oddly nervous, which was ridiculous. She had given keynote speeches to thousands, negotiated deals worth millions, faced down hostile corporate raiders. But the prospect of attending a preschool Halloween parade made her palms sweat. Maya waved from across the parking lot, Caleb bouncing excitedly beside her in a green dinosaur costume that was indeed missing its tail. Eleanor found herself walking faster than was dignified, eager to greet them. "Grandma Eleanor," Caleb shouted, using the name they'd settled on during their second visit together. He ran to her, and Eleanor picked him up without hesitation, something she would never have done 4 weeks ago. Worried about wrinkling her designer clothes or mussing her hair. "You make an excellent brachiosaurus," Eleanor told him seriously, examining his costume with the same attention she'd once given to quarterly reports. "The tail fell off in the car," Caleb explained tragically. "Mama tried to fix it, but it's really broken." Maya held up the errant tail, a long green tube of fabric stuffed with batting. "The Velcro gave out. I should have sewn it." Eleanor surprised them both by kneeling on the asphalt parking lot in her Chanel suit and examining the tail like an engineering problem. "Do you have those safety pins? And maybe some duct tape in your car?" 5 minutes later, through a combination of safety pins, duct tape, and Eleanor's unexpected skill with emergency repairs, the tail was reattached. Caleb swished it experimentally, grinning when it held firm. "You're good at fixing things," he declared. "I'm learning to be," Eleanor replied, meeting Maya's eyes with a meaningful look. As they walked toward the school, Maya linked her arm through Eleanor's, in a gesture of easy friendship that had developed between them over their weekly visits. "I know your schedule is insane. Nothing is more important than this," Eleanor said, and she meant it. The preschool playground had been transformed into a parade route, with parents lining the path, holding cameras and phones. Eleanor found herself standing among other grandparents, some in casual clothes, clearly taking time off from everyday jobs, others in business attire like herself. For the first time, she didn't feel separate or superior. She was just another grandmother, here to watch her grandchild march in a costume parade. The children emerged in a chaotic, adorable line: superheroes and princesses, animals and storybook characters. Caleb's class came out last, and when he spotted Eleanor and Maya, his whole face lit up. He waved so enthusiastically he nearly collided with the fairy princess in front of him. Eleanor waved back, laughing, and Maya captured the moment on her phone. "Michael would have loved this," Maya said softly. "Tell me what he would have done," Eleanor requested. She'd been asking Maya questions like this, trying to piece together the father Michael had become, the man he'd been in private, away from her expectations and pressures. Maya smiled, watching Caleb march past. He would have worn a matching dinosaur costume. He was ridiculous like that, never cared what anyone thought if it made Caleb happy. Last Halloween, they were both astronauts. Michael made our entire apartment into a spaceship with cardboard boxes. Eleanor felt the familiar pang of missed moments, but it was softened now by the present joy of being here, of creating new memories. After the parade, Maya invited Eleanor back to their apartment for lunch, a standing invitation that had become routine. Eleanor followed Maya's reliable sedan in her Mercedes, parking on the street in a neighborhood she never would have visited before. The apartment building was modest, well-maintained, but clearly not luxurious. Eleanor had offered multiple times to find them something better, but Maya had gently but firmly declined. "This is our home," Maya had explained during their second visit. "It's where Caleb feels safe and happy. Those are the things that matter." Inside, the apartment was small but filled with love. Children's artwork covered the refrigerator. Books overflowed from shelves Michael had built. Maya had showed Eleanor the places where he'd signed his work in pencil on the underside of each shelf. Photos documented Caleb's entire life, but there were also pictures of Maya's family, her mother, her younger sister. Eleanor had met Maya's mother, Rosa, during the third visit, bracing herself for hostility or resentment. Instead, Rosa had hugged her and said, "Maya's told me how hard you're trying. That takes courage." Today, Rosa was already at the apartment, having offered to make lunch. The older woman greeted Eleanor warmly, pulling her into a hug that Eleanor was learning to accept rather than stiffen against. "How was the parade?" Rosa asked. "Perfect," Eleanor replied. "Caleb was magnificent." Caleb, still in his dinosaur costume, proceeded to demonstrate his parade walk for them, making them all laugh. During lunch, Rosa's incredible homemade tamales, Eleanor found herself in the most domestic scene imaginable, helping Caleb wash his hands, wiping spilled juice, listening to his excited chatter about his best friend at school. It was messy and chaotic, and nothing like the sterile perfection of her own life, and she loved every minute of it. "Grandma Eleanor, do you want to see my room?" Caleb asked after lunch, tugging on her hand. "I'd love to," Eleanor replied. Caleb's room was small but clearly designed with love. A handmade mobile of planets hung from the ceiling. "Michael's work," Maya explained quietly. The walls were painted a cheerful blue, decorated with glow in the dark stars. Toys were organized in bins. Books lined a low shelf where Caleb could reach them. But what stopped Eleanor in her tracks was a framed photo on the nightstand. Michael, younger and happier than she'd seen him in years, holding newborn Caleb with an expression of such pure love it took her breath away. "That's my daddy," Caleb said matter-of-factly. "He lives in heaven now, but Mama says he's always watching out for me." Eleanor knelt down to Caleb's eye level. "Your daddy loved you more than anything in the world. Did you love him too?" Caleb asked, with the direct honesty of childhood. "Very much," Eleanor said. "I didn't always show it the way I should have, but yes, I loved him with all my heart." Caleb studied her seriously, then hugged her. "It's okay. Mama says love is about trying, even when it's hard." Later, after Caleb had gone down for his afternoon nap, Eleanor sat with Maya and Rosa at the small kitchen table, drinking coffee that tasted nothing like the expensive imported beans Eleanor usually consumed, but somehow tasted better. "I want to show you something," Maya said, retrieving a shoebox from her bedroom. She handed it to Eleanor with gentle care. "These are the letters Michael wrote to you, the ones he never sent." Eleanor's hands trembled as she opened the box. Inside were dozens of letters, some typed, some handwritten, spanning what looked like several years. The earliest were dated from when Michael was in college. "I'll give you privacy," Maya offered, but Eleanor shook her head. "Please stay. You loved him too. You have every right to be here." With Rosa and Maya sitting quietly beside her, Eleanor began to read her son's unsent words. The first letter was dated from Michael's sophomore year of college. "Dear Mom, I'm sitting in my dorm room, having just gotten off another phone call where you asked about my grades and whether I was networking with the right people. I wanted to tell you about the volunteer program I joined, about the kids I'm teaching computer skills to, about how good it feels to make a difference. But I know what you'd say, that I need to focus on my future, on building the right connections, on preparing to take over the company someday. I don't want the company, Mom. I never have. I want to do something that matters, something that helps people rather than just making money. But I don't know how to tell you that without feeling like I'm disappointing you. Again, I love you, but I don't know how to be the son you want and the person I need to be. Michael." Eleanor's tears fell onto the paper, but she kept reading. Letter after letter chronicled Michael's growing distance, his attempts to find a way to be honest with her, his hope that someday they could bridge the gap. One letter, dated 2 years before his death, made Eleanor's heart break. "Dear Mom, I fell in love. Her name is Maya, and she's everything you'd probably disapprove of on paper, working class, no family wealth, no connections to leverage. But she sees me, really sees me. Not Michael Hartwell the heir, but just Michael, the guy who wants to make the world a little better. I'm terrified to introduce you to her because I know what will happen. You'll interview her like a job candidate. You'll find 100 reasons why she's not good enough, and I'll have to choose between the woman I love and my relationship with you. I wish things were different. I wish I could call you right now and tell you I'm in love, and you'd be happy for me instead of worried about the implications for the company or the family reputation. I wish you knew me well enough to understand that success isn't measured in stock prices and market share. It's measured in moments of genuine connection, in making someone smile, in building something real that lasts beyond quarterly earnings reports. I love you, Mom. But I'm going to marry Maya, and we're going to build a life together. And it breaks my heart that I can't share that joy with you. Michael, he was going to propose?" Eleanor whispered. Maya nodded, fresh tears in her own eyes. "He bought a ring. It's in our bedroom. He was planning to propose on Christmas Eve. But I found out I was pregnant in November, and his plans changed. He proposed that night instead, in our tiny apartment, with no grand gesture, just him and me and our future." "Did you get married?" Eleanor asked. "We did. Small ceremony at the courthouse. Just us and my mom and sister as witnesses. He wanted to do it right away. Said he didn't want to wait another day to call me his wife. Maya smiled through her tears. He kept saying he wished his mom could be there, that he hoped someday you'd understand. Eleanor found another letter, dated just a month before Michael's death. Dear Mom, Caleb turned 3 last week. You have a grandson named Caleb Michael Hartwell Rodriguez, and he's the most amazing person I've ever known. He has your eyes, Mom. The same bright blue-green that sees everything. He's curious and kind and brilliant in ways that have nothing to do with test scores or achievements. I take him to the park every Saturday. I teach him about computers and coding, but also about kindness and empathy. I want him to grow up knowing that success isn't about winning, it's about living with integrity and compassion. I'm writing this letter because I've decided I need to tell you about him. About Maya and Caleb and the life I've built. I'm scared you'll react badly, that you'll try to take over or disapprove or make it complicated. But Caleb deserves to know his grandmother. And you deserve to know your grandson. I'm planning to come see you next month. To tell you everything. To introduce you to my family. And hope that maybe, finally, we can find our way back to each other. I love you, Mom. I've always loved you. And I hope you can love me for who I am, not who you wanted me to be. Your son, Michael. He was coming to tell me, Eleanor said, her voice breaking. Next month. That was the month he died, Maya finished gently. He never got the chance. Eleanor put her head in her hands, sobbing with a grief that was different from before. She had mourned Michael's death, but now she was mourning all the missed opportunities, all the conversations they never had, all the years she had prioritized the wrong things. Rosa's warm hand found Eleanor's shoulder. He forgave you, Mija. You read the letters, he never stopped loving you. I was a terrible mother, Eleanor wept. You were a scared mother who did the best you knew how, Rosa corrected gently. And now you have the chance to do better. For Caleb. Maya handed Eleanor tissues, her own eyes red. Michael wrote one more letter. After Caleb was born, he told me to give it to you if anything ever happened to him. With shaking hands, Eleanor opened the final envelope. Dear Mom, if you're reading this, something has happened to me, and Maya has found the courage to seek you out. First, please know that I love you. I've always loved you, even when we couldn't find our way to each other. By now, you know about Caleb. I'm sorry I kept him from you. That regret weighs on me every day. But I was scared. Scared you'd try to take over. Scared you'd disapprove of Maya. Scared that your wealth and power would overshadow the simple, beautiful life we were building. But here's what I need you to understand. Caleb is my legacy, not Hartwell Technologies. The company will survive without me. But Caleb needs family. He needs to know where he comes from, including the good and the complicated. Maya is an incredible mother. She loves Caleb with a fierceness that humbles me. Please don't try to replace her or diminish her role in his life. Instead, I'm asking you to support her. To be the grandmother I always hoped you could be: present, loving, accepting. I know you're capable of change, Mom. I've seen you transform industries and innovate solutions to impossible problems. Apply that same intelligence and determination to being a better grandmother than you were a mother. Not perfect, just present. Caleb will tell you about his favorite dinosaurs and space facts. He'll show you his artwork and teach you songs from preschool. Let him. Engage with him as a child, not as an extension of your legacy. Love him for who he is, not who you want him to become. And please, please forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for the mistakes you made with me, for the distance between us, for prioritizing work over relationship. None of us are perfect parents. The best we can do is try to do better. I hope you and Maya become friends. She's wise beyond her years, stronger than she knows, and has been the best partner I could have asked for. If you're reading this, it means she was brave enough to reach out to you despite her own fears. That takes remarkable courage. Honor it. Thank you for giving me life, Mom. Thank you for teaching me persistence and intelligence and the value of hard work. Those gifts have served me well, even if I applied them differently than you might have wished. Now, I'm asking you to give one more gift to Caleb and to yourself. The gift of second chances. The gift of being present. The gift of showing up with love instead of expectations. I believe in you, Mom. I always have. With all my love, your son, Michael. P.S. Tell Caleb about me. But not just the sanitized, perfect version. Tell him I made mistakes. That I struggled with confidence. That I burned dinner more often than I succeeded. Eleanor finished the letter and carefully refolded it, her hands reverent with the weight of her son's final words to her. The room was quiet, except for the soft sound of Caleb's breathing from his afternoon nap drifting through the baby monitor on the counter. He gave me a roadmap, Eleanor said quietly. Instructions for how to be what you both need. He believed in you, Maya said. Even when you didn't believe in yourself. Eleanor looked at these two women, Maya, who had loved her son and raised his child with grace and wisdom. Rosa, who had welcomed Eleanor without judgment despite having every reason to resent her. They represented everything she had once dismissed as not good enough. Working-class backgrounds, modest means, lives focused on relationships instead of achievement. And they had been right all along about what truly mattered. I want to do better, Eleanor said. I want to be the grandmother Michael hoped I could be. But I don't know how. I don't know how to be fully present when my whole life has been about multitasking and efficiency. Rosa laughed kindly. Mija, you just answered a work call while fixing a dinosaur tail with duct tape in a parking lot. You're already learning how to be present in the moments that matter. Maya pulled out her phone and showed Eleanor a photo she'd taken earlier without Eleanor noticing. Eleanor kneeling on the asphalt, her expensive suit forgotten, completely focused on repairing Caleb's costume while he watched her with total trust. This, Maya said, is what Michael hoped for. Not perfection, just presence. Eleanor studied the photo, seeing herself through new eyes. Can I have a copy of that? Of course, Maya tapped her screen. But Eleanor, I need to be honest with you about something. Eleanor's business instincts immediately went on alert. Preparing for bad news. For demands. For complications. But Maya's expression was open. Vulnerable, rather than calculating. I'm getting married in 2 months, Maya said. To David. And I want you to be part of the celebration. I want Caleb to see his grandmother there, supporting this new chapter of our family. I'd be honored, Eleanor said, meaning it. There's more, Maya continued. David is Chinese American. His family is traditional. They weren't thrilled when he fell in love with a single mother. But they've come around because they see how happy we are, how good David is with Caleb. Eleanor waited, sensing there was a point Maya was building toward. Your presence at the wedding would mean a lot to David's family, Maya explained. They know who you are. Everyone in tech knows Hartwell Technologies. Having you there would show them that families come in all configurations, that what matters is love and support, not matching the expected template. Eleanor realized she was being asked to make a public statement, to be visible, in support of this unconventional family. The old Eleanor would have worried about optics, about business implications, about maintaining her carefully crafted image. The new Eleanor, the grandmother who had cried over crayon drawings and fixed dinosaur tails in parking lots, saw only an opportunity to support the people she was coming to love. I'll be there, Eleanor said firmly. And Maya, I'd like to host your rehearsal dinner, if you'll let me. Not as a business networking event. Just as family. Please let me do this. Maya's eyes filled with tears. I want to, Eleanor insisted. Michael asked me to support you, to be present. This is how I can do that. They hugged, and Eleanor felt the walls she'd built around her heart continuing to crumble. Through the baby monitor, they heard Caleb stirring from his nap, calling for his mama. I'll get him, Eleanor offered, surprising everyone, including herself. She found Caleb sitting up in his bed, his dinosaur costume rumpled, his hair adorably messy. He smiled sleepily when he saw her. Grandma Eleanor, I had a dream about you and me and Mama and David. We were all having a picnic. Eleanor sat on the edge of his bed. That sounds like a wonderful dream. Can we do it for real? Caleb asked with the hopeful anticipation only children possess. Yes, Eleanor promised. We can do it for real. As she carried Caleb back to the kitchen, where Maya and Rosa were cutting fruit for snack time, Eleanor realized this was what Michael had wanted. Not grand gestures or expensive gifts, but simple presence, chosen family, love expressed through small daily acts of care. She had spent 30 years building an empire. Now she was learning to build something infinitely more valuable. A family built on love rather than obligation. On presence rather than presence. On acceptance rather than expectation. It wouldn't always be easy. There would be challenges ahead. Cultural differences to navigate. Old habits to overcome. But for the first time since Michael's death, Eleanor felt like she had a purpose that mattered more than quarterly earnings or market share. She had a grandson to know and love. She had a family to build. One crayon drawing and dinosaur costume and afternoon nap at a time. And in the process of becoming the grandmother Michael had believed she could be, Eleanor was finally becoming the person she herself wanted to be. The boardroom of Hartwell Technologies occupied the entire 42nd floor of the downtown tower, with windows offering a panoramic view of the city sprawling below. 20 executives sat around the gleaming conference table, their expressions ranging from curious to concerned as Eleanor stood at the head of the room, a position she'd commanded for 3 decades. "I'm making some changes to my schedule going forward," Eleanor announced, her voice carrying the authority that had built a billion-dollar empire. "Effective immediately. I'll be working from the office Monday through Thursday. Fridays are now blocked for family commitments." Her chief operating officer, Marcus Wellington, cleared his throat. "Eleanor, we have the Singapore negotiation scheduled for the next 6 Fridays. The time difference requires reschedule them," Eleanor interrupted calmly, "or handle them Thursday evenings. Marcus, you've been telling me for 5 years that you're ready for more autonomy. Consider this your opportunity." The room fell silent. In 30 years, Eleanor had never prioritized anything above the company. Her reputation as a workaholic was legendary: first to arrive, last to leave, answering emails at midnight, taking calls during holidays. Jennifer Kim, watching from her position near the door, hid a smile. She'd seen the transformation happening over the past 6 weeks since that first cemetery visit. The woman who once snapped at assistants for minor scheduling conflicts now asked about their families. The executive who never took lunch breaks now left the office promptly at 5 o'clock twice a week. "There's something else," Eleanor continued, her tone softening in a way the board had never heard before. "Many of you know I lost my son Michael 4 years ago. What you don't know is that I recently discovered I have a grandson. His name is Caleb. He's 4 years old. And he's taught me more about what matters in 6 weeks than I learned in 30 years of business." She clicked a button, and the massive screen behind her, usually displaying profit margins and market analyses, showed a photo of Caleb in his dinosaur costume, grinning at the camera with gap-toothed joy. "This company will continue to thrive," Eleanor said, looking each executive in the eye. "But it will do so with a CEO who has finally learned that success means nothing without the people we love. I'm not retiring, but I am rebalancing. And I expect this leadership team to model the same healthy priorities for our employees." After the meeting, Jennifer followed Eleanor back to her office. "That was brave," the assistant said quietly. "It was overdue," Eleanor replied, looking at the crayon drawing still prominently displayed on her desk. "Jennifer, I need you to find the best family law attorney in the city. Not for litigation, for consultation. I want to ensure Caleb's future is protected, that Maya has every resource and support she needs." "Already done," Jennifer said, handing Eleanor a folder. "I took the liberty of researching when you first mentioned your grandson. Sarah Chen, from Morrison Family Law, is the best. She specializes in non-traditional family structures and guardianship arrangements. She can see you tomorrow at 2. Eleanor looked at her assistant with new appreciation. "How long have you been anticipating my needs like this?" 15 years, Jennifer smiled. Someone had to look out for you. The next day, Eleanor sat in Sarah Chen's comfortable office, a space deliberately designed to feel more like a living room than a law firm. Sarah, a woman in her early 40s with kind eyes and a reputation for fierce advocacy, listened carefully as Eleanor explained the situation. I want to establish a trust for Caleb, Eleanor said. Education, healthcare, future security, everything he might need. But I don't want Maya to feel like I'm trying to control her or take over. Sarah made notes on her tablet. That's a delicate balance. Many grandparents in your position would try to establish custody or guardianship. The fact that you're approaching this as support rather than control speaks well of your intentions. Maya is an excellent mother, Eleanor said firmly. I have no interest in replacing her or diminishing her role. I want to enhance Caleb's opportunities while respecting the family structure she's created. What about when Maya marries David Chen? Sarah asked. Have you discussed what your role will be in that new family dynamic? Eleanor paused. It was a question she'd been avoiding, afraid of the answer. I'm invited to the wedding. Beyond that, we haven't discussed specifics. I'd recommend you have that conversation sooner rather than later, Sarah advised. Blended families can be complicated. Clear communication about expectations and boundaries prevents conflicts down the road. That evening, Eleanor invited Maya and David to dinner at her penthouse, a first, as all their previous interactions had been at Maya's apartment or neutral locations. Eleanor had spent the afternoon working with her housekeeper, Mrs. Patterson, to make the space feel less like a museum and more like a home. Should we move the Picasso? Mrs. Patterson had asked, gesturing to the original artwork that dominated one wall. No, but let's add some of Caleb's drawings beside it, Eleanor decided. Art is art, regardless of the artist's age. Now, as she welcomed Maya, David, and Caleb into her home, Eleanor saw the space through their eyes, beautiful but intimidating, wealthy but cold. Caleb's eyes went wide at the high ceilings and city views. Grandma Eleanor, you live in the sky, he exclaimed, pressing his nose against the floor-to-ceiling windows. David Chen stepped forward, extending his hand with polite formality. Mrs. Hartwell, thank you for inviting us. Your home is beautiful. Eleanor studied the man who would become Caleb's stepfather. David was in his mid-30s, with an open, honest face and the careful courtesy of someone raised in a traditional family. Maya had told her he was a civil engineer, that he'd met Caleb 6 months ago, and had slowly, patiently, built a relationship with the boy. Please, call me Eleanor, she said, shaking his hand warmly. Anyone who loves Maya and Caleb is family. Over dinner, catered by Eleanor's favorite restaurant but served family style rather than in the formal plated manner she usually preferred. They talked about David's work, his family, his relationship with Maya. My parents were concerned at first, David admitted honestly. Not about Maya herself, but about the complications. A child from a previous relationship, my taking on a ready-made family. Very traditional Chinese parents have very specific expectations. And now? Eleanor asked. David smiled, glancing at Maya with obvious affection. Now they see how happy I am, how Caleb has brought joy into my life. They're learning that family doesn't always look like the picture they imagined. Eleanor felt a kinship with David's parents, recognizing her own journey in their story. It's hard to let go of the future we've planned for our children, she said quietly. But sometimes the future they choose for themselves is better than anything we could have imagined. After dinner, while Caleb was distracted with a new puzzle in the living room, the three adults sat on the terrace overlooking the city lights. Eleanor had been preparing for this conversation all day, rehearsing words that still felt inadequate. I want to talk about my role in Caleb's life going forward, Eleanor began. Sarah Chen, a family law attorney, helped me understand that I need to be clear about my intentions and respectful of your boundaries. Maya and David exchanged glances, and Eleanor saw David squeeze Maya's hand supportively. I don't want to overstep, Eleanor continued. But I also don't want to be shut out. I'm learning how to be a grandmother, but I need your guidance on what that looks like in your family structure. Maya spoke first. Eleanor, these past weeks have been healing for both of us, I think. You've shown up consistently. You've been present, without trying to take over. And Caleb adores you. That foundation matters. But, Eleanor prompted, sensing hesitation. But we need to be honest about potential challenges, David said carefully. My family is traditional. When we marry, I'll be adopting Caleb. He'll have my last name, be part of the Chen family officially. I need to know you can support that without feeling like you're losing him. Eleanor felt a pang. Caleb, losing the Hartwell name, felt like losing another piece of Michael. But she forced herself to think beyond her own feelings to what was best for Caleb. What does Caleb want? She asked. He wants to be Caleb Chen, Maya said gently. He wants to be part of David's family fully. But he also wants to keep his connection to his father's memory. To you. To the Hartwell side of his heritage. Then we make sure he has both, Eleanor said firmly. Names are important, but relationships are what truly matter. He'll be Caleb Chen in school and on official documents, but he'll always know he's also a Hartwell. We can honor both parts of his identity. Relief flooded Maya's face. I was afraid you'd fight us on this. The old me might have, Eleanor admitted. But the grandmother Caleb is teaching me to be understands that love isn't about possession or control. It's about supporting what's best for him. David pulled out his phone, showing Eleanor photos of his extended family. This is my parents, my 3 sisters, my grandmother who's 92 and still sharp as a tack. When Maya and I marry, she and Caleb become part of this whole network. It's big and chaotic, and sometimes overwhelming. It sounds wonderful, Eleanor said, meaning it. Caleb will have aunts and uncles, cousins, a huge extended family. That's a gift. We want you to be part of that network too, Maya said. Not separate from it, but integrated into it. David's family needs to see that you support our marriage, that you're not going to cause problems, or try to use your wealth and influence to complicate things. It was a fair concern, Eleanor realized. From their perspective, she was a powerful billionaire who could make their lives difficult if she chose to. I'll do whatever it takes to show them I support you both, Eleanor promised. The rehearsal dinner I offered to host, let me use that as an opportunity to meet David's family, to demonstrate publicly that I'm here as support, not opposition. David nodded slowly. That could actually help a lot. My parents are impressed by business success. Having someone of your stature treating Maya as family, treating me as worthy of that acceptance, it would ease their remaining concerns. Then it's settled, Eleanor said. But I also want to establish some practical support, a trust fund for Caleb's education, managed by Maya and David with complete autonomy over decisions, health insurance through Hartwell Technologies' executive plan, and a college fund that ensures Caleb can attend any school he chooses without financial burden. Eleanor, Maya began, but Eleanor raised her hand. This isn't about control, she insisted. It's about ensuring my grandson has every opportunity. I'm not trying to buy my way into his life. These past weeks have shown me that relationships can't be purchased, but I can use my resources to remove obstacles from his path. Please let me do this. Maya looked at David, who nodded. We accept, with gratitude, Maya said. On one condition, you let us reciprocate in our own ways. You're part of our family now, which means you come to Sunday dinners, you get invited to Caleb's preschool performances, you're included in the messy, ordinary moments, not just the major milestones. I'd like nothing more, Eleanor said, feeling tears prick her eyes. Caleb appeared on the terrace, tugging on Eleanor's sleeve. Grandma Eleanor, can I show you my favorite star? David taught me how to find it. The 4 of them stood together on the terrace, David patiently pointing out constellations, while Caleb bounced excitedly and Maya leaned against Eleanor in easy companionship. Eleanor felt something shift in her chest, a loosening of the tight control she'd maintained for so long, an opening to the messy, beautiful reality of real connection. Over the next month, Eleanor threw herself into wedding preparations with the same intensity she'd once applied to corporate acquisitions, but with a crucial difference. She consulted Maya and David on every decision, respecting their preferences even when they differed from her own ideas. The rehearsal dinner became a careful bridge between worlds. Eleanor hosted it at her penthouse, but worked with Maya's mother Rosa to ensure the menu honored both families' traditions. She invited key members of David's extended family, giving them the opportunity to see her support for the marriage. David's parents, Thomas and Lynn Chen, arrived early, clearly nervous about meeting the famous Eleanor Hartwell. Eleanor greeted them with warmth rather than formality, immediately putting them at ease. "Your son is a remarkable man," Eleanor told them. "He loves Maya and Caleb with such devotion. You raised him well." Lin Chen, a petite woman with sharp eyes that missed nothing, studied Eleanor carefully. "You are not what I expected," she said, in accented but clear English. "The media makes you seem very severe." Eleanor laughed. "I was severe. My grandson is teaching me to be softer." As the evening progressed, Eleanor watched the two families begin to blend. Rosa and Lynn discovered a shared love of gardening. David's sisters fussed over Caleb, who basked in the attention. Thomas Chen and Eleanor found common ground discussing engineering innovations. At one point, Eleanor found herself in the kitchen with Maya, both of them checking on dessert preparations. "This is going well," Maya said, sounding relieved. "I was worried about culture clashes." "People are people," Eleanor replied. "When we focus on what we have in common rather than our differences, bridges are easier to build than we think." Maya hugged her spontaneously. "Thank you for this. For all of it. For being willing to change, to grow, to be part of our lives in a healthy way. Thank you for giving me the chance," Eleanor said. "For trusting me with Caleb. For including me in your new family. Michael would be proud of you." "He'd be proud of you too," Maya said. "This version of you, the one who shows up and stays present and puts relationships first, this is the mom he always hoped you'd become." The wedding itself, 2 weeks later, was a beautiful blend of traditions. Maya walked down the aisle of a small church, with both Rosa and Eleanor on either side of her, a gesture that moved Eleanor to tears. Caleb served as ring-bearer, taking his job with adorable seriousness. During the reception, Eleanor gave a toast that she'd carefully prepared with Jennifer's help. "I learned something important from my grandson recently," Eleanor began, looking at Caleb sitting proudly at the head table. "He told me that families are like puzzles. Sometimes the pieces look different, but when you put them together with love, they make a beautiful picture." She raised her glass. "To Maya and David, who are creating a beautiful picture. To blended families and second chances. To learning that love doesn't divide, it multiplies. And to Caleb, who taught his grandmother that it's never too late to get priorities right." As guests applauded and clinked glasses, Eleanor caught David's eye. He mouthed, "Thank you," and Eleanor nodded, understanding flowing between them. She wasn't losing Caleb to this new family. She was gaining a whole network of people who loved him. Later, during the dancing, Caleb pulled Eleanor onto the floor. "Grandma, Eleanor, David's teaching me a special dance. Do you want to learn it with me?" Eleanor, who hadn't danced in years, found herself following Caleb's enthusiastic if uncoordinated steps, laughing in a way that shocked her own board members who had been invited to the celebration. Marcus Wellington approached during a break in the music. "Eleanor, I have to say I've worked with you for 15 years, and I've never seen you this happy." "I've never been this happy," Eleanor admitted. "Turns out there's more to life than quarterly earnings. The company's thriving under your new schedule, by the way," Marcus added. "Employee morale is up. People appreciate seeing leadership that values work-life balance. Then everyone wins." Eleanor smiled. As the evening wound down, Eleanor found a quiet moment with Maya and David. "I have something for you both," she said, handing them an envelope. Inside was a legal document establishing the trust fund for Caleb. Structured exactly as they discussed with Maya and David as trustees, complete control over decisions, and Eleanor's role limited to funding and advisory support if requested. "There's one more thing," Eleanor added, pulling out a second envelope. "This is for you, Maya. A scholarship fund in Michael's name for single mothers pursuing higher education. You mentioned once that you'd put your degree on hold when Caleb was born. This fund will support women like you while also honoring Michael's belief in education and opportunity." Maya's eyes filled with tears. "Eleanor, I don't know what to say." "Say you'll consider going back to school," Eleanor replied. "Say you'll let me babysit Caleb one evening a week so you can take classes. Say you'll let me invest in your dreams the way you've invested in healing my heart." The three of them hugged, and Eleanor felt the final pieces of her transformation clicking into place. She wasn't trying to buy love or assuage guilt anymore. She was genuinely investing in the people she cared about, supporting their dreams without trying to control their outcomes. On Sunday morning, Eleanor attended her first Chen family dinner. A chaotic, joyful gathering of 3 generations, crammed into Thomas and Lynn's suburban home. She helped in the kitchen, played with Caleb and his new cousins, and listened to family stories that had nothing to do with business or achievement and everything to do with connection and love. As she drove home that evening, Eleanor realized she was already looking forward to next Sunday, to the next family gathering, to the simple pleasure of being part of something bigger than herself. Her phone buzzed with a text from Maya. "Thank you for today. Caleb said you're his favorite grandma. Don't worry. He said the same about Lynn. He's learning diplomacy early." Eleanor laughed and texted back. "He can have as many favorite grandmas as he wants. Love multiplies." Remember? That night, Eleanor sat in her home office. But instead of reviewing reports, she was organizing photos from the wedding into an album for Caleb. She discovered she enjoyed this work: the careful selection of images, the handwritten captions, the tangible creation of family history. On her desk, beside the quarterly earnings report she'd get to eventually, sat Caleb's latest, drawing a picture of their family that included Maya, David, Rosa, Thomas, Lynn, and Eleanor all holding hands under a bright sun. He'd labeled it, "My Big Family," in his careful preschool printing. Eleanor had it professionally framed and hung it in her office at Hartwell Technologies, right next to the awards and accolades that had once defined her entire identity. Now, when executives came to her office, they asked about the drawing first, about the family it represented, and Eleanor found herself telling them about Caleb's latest accomplishments, not future stock options or legacy planning, but genuine celebration of a 4-year-old learning to tie his shoes and memorizing dinosaur names. She'd spent 30 years building an empire. Now she was learning that the greatest legacy she could leave wasn't a company or a fortune. It was the investment in relationships, the time spent showing up, the love multiplied through second chances and open hearts. Michael had been right. Success wasn't measured in stock prices and market share. It was measured in moments of genuine connection, in making someone smile, in building something real that lasted beyond quarterly earnings reports. And for the first time in her life,